was Vitex, and I specifically wanted people to see the pictures, one, to see what the fresh herb looks like, and it's also really important to know what part of the herb. So Vitex, we use the seeds, so you can kind of see the berries of the Vitex right there in the corner. This is very
Do you take those, like, is it something that you just take as a pill, or do you put it in tea? Like, are there various different ways?
yeah, there's definitely multiple preparations. My favorite with Vitex is definitely tincture. And if you don't like the taste of tinctures, a great company, Gaia Herbs, actually make like tincture capsules where they actually put the liquid herb in capsules. So if you don't like the taste, you can make it as a tea. And actually with all these herbs, so when I actually prescribe herbs, I rarely prescribe them as what I call a singular. I often use them in conjunction with other herbs. And I forgot to also mention, Chaste Tea Berry is very commonly used specifically for women who might have not been getting their period, particularly after stopping birth control. It can be really useful. Not for everyone, but it can be really helpful in bringing on periods. And then another thing just to say about all the herbs, when it comes to female herbs, most of them you're not going to necessarily notice a difference right away. You definitely need to take the herb for at least 3 months, and all of the herbs that I presented in this presentation can be taken more or less long-term if necessary. And here's Motherwort. So Motherwort is actually, so if you look in the corner is the dried herb. So you can see that it's a root. You can take this also as a tincture, which is basically an alcohol preparation, or in a capsule, or even a tea. And this is Shatavari. And so you can see, so it doesn't necessarily look like asparagus. It is in the asparagus family. We use the root. An interesting way that, because it is an Ayurvedic herb, and there's like different interesting ways of doing Ayurvedic preparation. One way that I have actually used this herb is what we call a milk decoction. And if you're lactose intolerant or you don't drink milk, you could actually use coconut milk, or basically you're adding the dry or fresh herb, and you basically cook it in the milk for 45 minutes to an hour. This is specifically if you know anything about like doshas. Milk decoction is supposed to be very vata pacifying, so that's just something else kind of interesting to note about this.
We do have one question in the chat. I don't know if you see this, but somebody saying they're happy to be here and it's just what they needed. But the question is Vitex recommended to use or avoid for PCOS with high testosterone and high insulin resistance?
Okay, yeah, so Vitex is one of these like controversial herbs when it comes to PCOS. For some women with PCOS, Vitex can be a helpful herb. The biggest thing is really not so much about, so typically we always see, not to say that we always see high testosterone with PCOS. The big indicator of whether or not a woman with PCOS should use Vitex is if she has elevated LH, which is luteinizing hormone. So one of the reasons that Vitex can be useful to help someone get pregnant or a woman get pregnant is because it can increase LH. But if you're a woman with elevated LH associated PCOS, I would not use Vitex. So that's always something, I love Vitex for many of my PCOS patients. That's one of the first things I check to decide whether or not that woman will be a candidate for Vitex.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions before we have one more question. Shalini is wondering which of these is good for endometriosis for her niece.
Okay. Definitely there's, so of all the herbs, well, actually, I'd like both. I would say definitely the Motherwort and the Vitex would be a good combination because, again, like the Vitex is going to help to promote more of the progesterone, which is one of the problems with endometriosis. I mean, there's definitely some other herbs that I also really like. One in particular is pine bark. that can be also very beneficial when it comes to pain relief. But the big thing is really helping to decrease estrogen.
All right. Any other questions? Question about what about for menopause?
Okay, so menopause. So of this slide, I really, actually both Motherwort can help with hot flashes, and then because Shatavari can help with estrogen, I would say both of those are really good herbs. My favorite menopause herb, which is not on this, is maca. So maca is one of the, it's not estrogen, but it has much more estrogen-like qualities. And I have seen a lot of my menopause patients within a few months of taking it, having less hot flashes and less vaginal dryness. So that's a really good herb to add.
Amazing. And Dr. Ivy, will you share these slides? Like, would you be willing to share the slides or share some information that we can email out to everybody who's here tonight?
Absolutely, yes. If people want to
Perfect.
address, I'm happy to include anything.
Perfect. And what's the best way if people have other questions or if they want to set up a consultation or further work with you, what's the best way to get in touch?
You can either go straight to my website, which is simplicityhealthassociates.com, and I have like all my contact information there, or you can always email me at Dr. Ivy, that's DRIVY, at simplicityhealthassociates.com. I'm also on Instagram, and like Dr. Ivy _ND, but that probably just go to my website and everything is on my website.
Perfect. And I'll send out a follow-up email. I'll get the slides from you and I'll make sure that your website and all that information is in an email that I'll send out to everybody. And I can also speak from experience as a patient of Dr. Ivy's. She completely saved my life from some absolutely horrific PMS, physical, mental, emotional distress that was happening in my life for years, actually. And it was, I think, a few simple supplements that you recommended, and it was just a complete game changer. So if any of you are dealing with some of this stuff and want some support, I highly recommend Dr. Ivy from experience.